Irish and Finesse with you on Monday night. Finesse, the words that I dread hearing were uttered by Chris Harrison at the beginning of tonight's episode. Gentlemen, he said, there are only 13 of you left. I'm not sure how that's good news in any way, shape, or form.
And I'm not sure, honestly, how Dez could see this as good news at this point. I've never seen such an embarrassing, underwhelming performance by a group of Bachelorette contestants as I'm seeing this year. I don't see anyone going out to seize the moment, to get the rose. They're all waiting for the rose to come to them, and I think it's unacceptable.
Would you have rather watched 2 full hours of Manny and Jan or what we saw tonight?
What Manny and Jan did tonight was rescue an episode that was otherwise just unsavable. It was gone. But let me play devil's advocate for a minute, and I'm probably going to take some heat for this position. It's an unpopular opinion, but I think that Desiree and James did the wrong thing, giving their date to Manny and Jan.
How so?
I'll tell you why. Because it's not about Manny and Jan at this point. What you want is you want to find the next Manny and Jan. And how are Desiree and James going to become Manny and Jan if they're giving up their date to Manny and Jan? There's not a lot of time on this show. Time is of the essence. Time is crucial.
You're saying step aside, Manny and Jan.
I'm saying it's a nice gesture for Dez and James to give their date to Manny and Jan. But I think it was a little selfish of Manny and Jan to accept the date. I think they should have given the date back to Dez and said, Dez, I appreciate the gesture. It's the thought that counts. It's not about us. It's about you. It's about the next Manny, the next Jan.
What kind of a person are you? You're saying, Manny and Jan, you don't deserve this moment of
I'm not saying
joy after all you've been through. You're saying go back to your beachfront property.
I'm not saying Manny and Jan
completely washed out.
It's not that they don't deserve it. It's that we're losing focus of what this show is about. And this is my bigger picture complaint. And you have to tell me if I'm losing it, because back at the mansion tonight, the gentlemen were talking about Ben. Ben with the son, Ben who is supposedly there for the wrong reasons. And they were complaining that Ben wasn't talking enough about his son. Where did we get here? How did we get here? That this is what's the complaint. He's not talking enough about his son now. Am I losing it? Have I just totally lost my way with this show?
I think a little bit. You have. What you're not understanding is that somebody like Brad, who was on the first date, if you have a son, it's not enough to know how to be a father, which I know, by the way. I know exactly how to be a father.
I've heard about it. I don't know. I can't relate, so there's nothing I can say.
That is no longer enough. You need to demonstrate the proper affection for your son without letting the fact that you have a son be a signal that you need to be sent home at the earliest opportunity, which was what happened with Brad.
No, see, with all due respect to you, to your father,
be careful.
I
don't know where you're going with this, but you preface it with all due respect. My antenna go up.
What Brad pulled tonight when he got kicked off from his first date was the classic, I know I'm about to go home or I've just been sent home. Let me soften the blow by saying this is the best thing for my son. The best thing for your son would have been to not leave for 4 weeks and go on the show. I suppose you could say the second best thing for your son is that you get sent home after 4 weeks rather than lingering for 7 or 8 weeks.
How hard did Desiree have to try to picture a life with Brad? Because she was trying really hard to do that. And I feel like that's more of a stretch than we've seen. in recent times on this show.
He did less than anyone I've ever seen to try to get a rose. And it's just such a disappointment. I mean, he didn't fight for it. He didn't write a poem. He didn't turn over tiles with letters on them. He didn't do anything. He didn't... Where's the letter from Maddox? Okay? Like, you have a son or maybe a daughter named Maddox, and you're about to get kicked off the show. Where's the letter from Maddox saying, I want a new mommy, I need a mommy, I hear you're so pretty, or something like that? Nothing. No fight. Nothing from Brad.
You need to empty your pistol at that point. You need to unload all of your ammunition. But really, my biggest problem with that date wasn't with Brad, it was with Des. Because she schleps Brad up to the top of what looked like a 13 or 14 story tower. They walk all the way up, only for her to say to him, I can't give you the rose. I don't want to take any time away from Maddox. Well, Des, if you didn't want to take time away from Maddox, put the poor guy in a cab before you schlep him up to the top of the tower, and then make him walk all the way back down. Is that too much to ask?
But had she not taken him up to the top of the tower, she would not have gotten to say, and I quote, I want love that can light the darkness.
Yeah, that's a good point. So is it me, or did Juan Pablo announce that he has a daughter out of the blue during a stand-up performance?
I'm not sure that Juan Pablo ever thought to bring it up. I think Juan Pablo just goes with the moment. We talked about this last week. It's a potential huge flaw with Juan Pablo, this too cool for school attitude. And he might not have even realized, number one, that he had a daughter, or that he hadn't told Des about the daughter. Like, he might have just... Sometimes his daughter might just pop into his head at random moments. Who could say?
Yeah, it's just like, by the by, you need to love my daughter. Incidentally.
I mean, that's a guy... shame on Juan Pablo. Because that's a guy with a real opportunity here. In a weak field, he's clearly got a distinct advantage over the other guys with the accent and sort of this exotic foreign nature. And he's just going through the motions like the rest of them. And so...
I don't know, I think that sort of adds to Juan Pablo's allure. He's just like, there are so many things you don't know about me. You need to love my daughter. You need to, take care of my cattle. You need to, it could be anything with Juan Pablo. You don't know, and that's very mysterious.
It could be anything, but it could be nothing. I mean, he literally might just have nothing and not care about anything, and just go through the day not caring.
Juan Pablo could be homeless for all we know. We know nothing about him.
He might also have a son. He might not even know he has a son, or he just hasn't remembered. He needs a reminder.
He's such an enigma, Juan Pablo.
The other big story tonight was clearly James, who accompanied Des to survey the damage of the Jersey Shore. They're in the helicopter. They're pointing at the houses, saying, oh my God, their hands are covering their mouths. It's a very emotional time. The devastation of the Jersey Shore. You'd be a robot to not be affected by that footage. But
yeah. And who better to be a spokesman for what we were all witnessing than James? So articulate.
And there was a scene, they're walking down the street, and I swear, 99% swear to God, that the Jersey Shore house was shown in the background, like the actual house from the show Jersey Shore, when they're walking around Seaside Heights. The brown house.
I don't think that's a coincidence. The producers of The Bachelor are so many steps ahead of all of us. They know that when you look at James, you're thinking Jersey Shore. Do you think it was an accident that this was his one-on-one date? You got another thing coming.
The James cheating revelation. He revealed that he had dated a girl for 5.5 years and then cheated on her his freshman year of college. And if you do a little reverse math.
Yeah, I did it.
This means this is his girlfriend from 8th grade. And
right.
This is his big reveal, that he dated his girlfriend in 8th grade for 5.5 years. and then cheated on her when I assume they went to separate schools. They go to separate colleges, and he has a slip up, and he cheats on her with somebody else. Is it fair to judge James's trustworthiness by this single indiscretion his freshman year in college?
Listen, no one could have seen that coming. They were very devoted to each other.
It never happens. That never happens.
I couldn't imagine that happening. And you make it to when you're 18 years old, and you figure, you've made it that long. You made it through that, 12 to 18 phase, which, as we all know, is just, you just have to have the discipline of a freaking, saint to make it through that. When you get to 18, you figure it out of the woods.
Yeah, you go away to separate colleges. You got one person goes to college up in Boston, someone else goes down south, and you feel like, hey, it's only going to get easier to not stray from each other from here on out.
Right.
Do you think, though, that Des trusts James? Because there was a time when she's giving him the rose at the end of the date, and she looks at him and she goes, I think that you are trustworthy. And her voice just cracks as she says trustworthy. And honestly, she wasn't selling me on it. I'm not convinced that she thinks James is trustworthy.
Listen, time will tell. I know that you don't watch the teasers for upcoming programs, so I don't want to rely on my inside information here, but suffice it to say that, what's James now, you think, like 23, 25?
Years old?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that some of the older men are going to start seeing him as a threat and question whether he's been through enough in his life?
Well, I don't think they can question that, given that he went through that 12 to 18 period when he was monogamous.
He knows what it's like to love and then lose.
Right. So I don't think you can question that, but I just think that, now that James 23 or 24, he should be okay. Like, he should have everything out of his system, no issues with being there for the wrong reasons. So, I trust James. I don't know if Des trusts James, but I trust James.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the pageant, the Mr. America pageant. And
would we really be remiss, or would we be?
Are you saying we wouldn't be remiss if I stopped the podcast and let you go watch the end of the hockey game?
Right.
Well, what I want to ask you is this.
Yeah.
They're doing the pageant. They're doing the swim competition. You have the mayor of Atlantic City there. You have the ex-Miss Nevada or something.
Of course.
Miss New Jersey. I don't know. And you have Bryden come to the edge of the stage. Bryden, the Iraq War veteran, and he starts a hardcore pelvic thrust.
Like in a thong.
Inches away from the face of the African-American mayor of Atlantic City. And I'm wondering, isn't this what Martin Luther King fought for? Isn't this his dream come to life?
I don't think there's any... I don't think there's any question about that. And this from sensitive Bryden, who, could barely bring himself to make it to the end of the episode. So hurt was he by the lack of that one-on-one time. You ever notice how, it's never like just one-on-one time. It's never a little one-on-one time or the one-on-one time. It's always that one-on-one time. You need that time. You need that one-on-one time.
That's a special time that not everyone gets. So
it's that time.
You're not wrong to build it up, because if you don't have it, you really don't have anything.
I think that's true. So where do you think things go from here? Who's your favorite heading into week, what are we, 4?
We're going into week 5.
Week 5. Who do you like? How have things changed for you?
I'm going to take the advice that Des gave out this week, which was focus on what you know, not what you perceive. And so what do I know? I know this. I know that Des is looking for love. I know she wants a husband. I know she doesn't strike me as the type of person who wants to be someone else's mother, some kid who someone keeps talking about. So throw out the fathers. They're not going to win. Beyond that, Chris made a big move this week. I don't know if he's the favorite. Can't even really picture what he looks like right now. And I'll be honest, I don't have a favorite. There is no favorite in my book. Nobody's jumping out to me as the favorite.
Yeah, it's a pretty unimpressive crew. I will say this though, don't sleep on Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks could linger. I could see him lingering. I mean, he I don't know. He doesn't impress me all that much. But it's not me. I'm not marrying him, so it doesn't matter.
You also have to think about who can stand up to Dez's brother during hometowns. Who is it that can look Dez's brother in the eye and walk out of that room in an advantageous position? Well,
you look at a guy like James. He's this big, very large man, but I think he's kind of a softie. I think he would.
He's a pussycat, James.
Yeah, he would just crumble in the face of Dez's brother. I think if you want someone with a little bit of fire, you got to look at a Drew. You got to look at a Zach W. You got to look at a Casey. I mean, these guys are all possible contenders for hometowns, and as we know, better than anyone, once you get to hometowns, anything can happen.
All bets are off.
Just get in the tournament. And the tournament really doesn't begin until hometowns.
That's right. Seeding doesn't matter at that point.
No, you throw the seeds out the window. Just throw them out the window. Tear up the brackets. I don't want the bracketology. I don't want Dick Vitale. I don't want Digger Phelps. I don't want any of those guys. You throw it out the window, and you just see what happens when you get to hometowns.
Such passion from you tonight. I think seeing Manny and Jan the way we did tonight made you realize that time is fleeting and that you really need to cherish every one of these episodes. And I appreciate that. I think we all do. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next week, the Big Kibitz.
Time to kibitz, time to kibitz, time to kibitz. It's the Big Kibitz. Come and kibitz with the Big Kibitz. Ooh, Big Kibitz. It's the Big Kibitz. Come and kibitz with the Big Kibitz. Ooh.